take your seat as we're about to begin this Global Networking Forum of the IAC 2025. And we are starting very, very strong with this first session called ESA Strategy 2040, the process of defining ESA vision for Europe in space. And please join me in welcoming on stage Heriberto Saldivar, Heads of Strategy at European Space Agency.
Hi, hello everybody. Good afternoon. I'm very happy to be here in Australia, and I would like to thank our organizers and also Australia for being such a wonderful host. I will gonna walk you through the whole process that took us to do the Strategy 2040. It's an exercise that if you were in the plenary just now, our DG Joseph Aschbacher has already hinted and explained a little bit, but I'm gonna tell you how we achieve it. To start, I want to say that space is not somewhere far away. Opposite to some of us that took a lot of time to come to Australia, sometimes space is closer than we think about it, right? Space is woven into the fabric of our daily lives. When the farmers decide to irrigate or harvest, they rely on satellites measuring the soil, predicting the rainfall. Then when plants want to land safely, when ships need to navigate, or when lorries need to deliver the food, everything depends on satellite navigations. Even the financial transactions, the weather forecast, and a lot of more things that rely on space. And space also protects us. Every time that there's a flood, wildfires, satellites can give us the first view and pictures that can help us guide the emergency response teams and saving lives. So space gives us perspective, detaching ourselves from where we are and let us see the bigger picture. But beyond that, it's a necessity for an economy, our security, our climate, and our future. So there's the case for Strategy 2040. We live in a time of changes. As we can see here, there's a big potential economically for space. McKinsey is predicting that 1.8 trillion of opportunity by 2035. The United States and by themselves invest more than half of the global public funding, but China and India are expanding rapidly, and around the world, new nations and private players are accelerating their ambitions. For us in Europe, this is both a challenge and an opportunity. To remain relevant and competitive, we need a long-term thinking, and this is why we built Strategy 2040. We define a vision for the next 15 years, and one will say, why 15 years? Because it gives us enough distance to start planning, to think of the long term, but at the same time, it's close enough that we can see the results coming to us. And we did it by embracing Europe's diversity. ESA is unlike any other organization, space agency in the world. We have 23 member states that mean different histories, industries, languages, ambitions. And at first glance, this might be very complex. How do you manage what Germany wants, that what Luxembourg wants, what Poland wants, or what Greece wants? We have different space industries, different political priorities, and different areas of expertise. A lot of people will see this as an obstacle, but in ESA we see this as one of our greatest strengths. Every member state, larger or smaller, adds a unique piece of the European space mosaic, and this is something that it is incredible. But that's not all. To add complexity, we have 11 directorates. ESA is one of the few space organizations that tackles all the range of space across the globe, and we have from exploration to telecommunications, from Earth observation to space safety. And at the same time, in each directorate, they have different priorities, they have their own culture, their mission focus, their own passions, and you want to add a little bit more to the mix, we're also working with the European Union on programs like Copernicus and IRIS². So the picture becomes very complex. So how do we embrace this diversity in the Strategy 2040? This is something that we were thinking and trying to figure it out. The solution is making sure that the voices are heard. Every directorate contribute. Every member state had the chance to shape the outcome through consultations and workshops. We were decided very early that it is important to include the young generation. So during the sessions that we have for Foresight, one of the young ESA staff, that it is an organization inside of ESA comprising of people under 37, let's call it our own SGAC, stand up and tell us, if this is about 2040, then it's about us, because we will have to deliver it. And this was a very important moment to capture it. We couldn't be just deciding something for them to take in it. They needed to believe in it, and they needed to be working onto that. So it was not a top-down exercise. It was an exercise of interactions, of discussions, and also co-creation. Little by little, layer by layer, we built something that is a shared vision that everybody could see themselves in it. Now, this has been a 2-year journey of collaboration and insight. And we started at the foundations. This is a photo of the signing of ESA. We needed to look inwards. We needed to see our past strategies, what has worked, where we fell short, where we have made mistakes, but where we have also succeeded. So we first started with a SWOT analysis. Many of you know the SWOT analysis. We took a look at the strengths of the agency, also our weaknesses, the opportunities in the space sector, not only in Europe, but across the world, and the risks that we must navigate. It was a very strong mirror in front of us, and it helped us understand not just where we are, but where we can be. Now, as I was talking about our member states, they all have their own strategies, they all have their own visions, and what we decided to do was also sit down and taking a look at what they were presenting, how they were seeing the space evolution, what they wanted to achieve. And then at the end of the day, we had to weave all of these threads into a coherent European tapestry. After that, we look outward. We turn to the partners, to people around the world that are doing a lot of interesting things. NASA, JAXA, ISRO, China, just to name a few of them. And we took a look at their strategies, and all of them had lessons for us. How they govern complex programs, how they drive innovation, how they engage with the industry. And by comparing ourselves internationally, we could see where Europe already leads, where we're at risk of failing behind, and where we can collaborate. But space, as I mentioned, it is not about isolation. We need to think about how it affects our daily lives. So we start to check into the mega trends shaping the decades ahead. So we examine the geopolitical shifts, the climate emergency, the rapid technological disruptions of AI and quantum. Something that it is in a lot of the news, it is also the demographic changes. This is going to affect a lot of how we see and how we work. And we took a look into reports of the European Union, OECD, United Nations, World Economic Forum, and all of that fill into our pot and allows us to see how everything can be related. So because we know that space is not in isolation, and it's going to be shaped by a lot of global forces around it, from energy markets to geopolitics. And coming back to one of the most powerful part of this, the people. We were very, very impressed by the comments that we get received from young people, from experienced people, from our partners, and that we were really sure that by discussing, by talking, and more importantly, by listening, we're building something bigger than just one directorate, one country, or one program. At the end of these 2 years, we came out with a shared vision, ESA Strategy 2040. If you want to download it, you can scan that QR code. And at the core of it lies something that it is the core principle. Space must serve society. And to make it true, we came with 5 long-term interdependent goals. The first of one, it is protecting our planet and climate. We don't see that just as the weather here. We're talking about 3 different layers. The first one, it is about address the climate change, where we're living, our ecosystems. Then we go a little bit above, and it is about the circular economy, the zero debris. If we're launching more rockets, if we're launching more satellites, the orbit around us starts to be becoming very, very crowded. So we need to know how we can take a look at that. And this can also lead to new opportunities like circular economy, how we can manage much better the resources in space. And then what we were thinking ahead was also about protecting our planet in a planetary defense. So you know about a mission we're going to be doing that it is called Ramses with our colleagues of JAXA. But we're also talking about space weather. Events like solar flares can disrupt our satellites. And this is important for us to have a little bit of warning to that. If we're not able to protect our planet, everything else starts to become a little bit different from space. The second one that we went was about explore and discover. This is based on certain parts of our convention, that it was about the scientific principle, but also about exploration and the curiosity of human nature. So we take the two different paths here. One of them is how we can unravel our planet and the universe. Those mysteries, we want to understand about gravitational waves, we want to know if there's life in other planets, but at the same time we want to see where humans can go, where we can explore, and that is done with the exploration in Leo, Moon, Mars, and the outside planets. After that, we're thinking about how we can strengthen our autonomy and resilience in Europe. Our DG just mentioned a little bit ago about our launcher crisis, and this was something that has stayed with us. You cannot be a space power, you cannot play if you cannot access space. So for us, one of the priorities is ensure European access to space. It is not just reaching space, but it is how we transport things into space and how we can innovate. The second one, and it is also touching a lot into our citizens, it's about prediction and management of disasters from space. We cannot dream, we cannot develop our economy if our citizens are not safe. And we believe that developing these capacities from space can give us an edge. The third one, it is about developing the next generation of PNT, connectivity, and Earth observation satellites. And this is something that we're already way ahead, and we want to be able to make it even better, integrate much better, and we're working this very closely with our colleagues in the European Union. Then we want to boost European growth and competitiveness. We have here 4 different points. The first one, it is strengthening industrial capacity and unlocking new markets. We have been seeing how amazing companies are here in Sydney. We're seeing a lot of people in the stand presenting new innovation. What we want to do, it is continue to do that. We have a great industrial capacity in Europe. We want to boost it. We want to present new opportunities. And we want to expand to different markets, markets that are generally not considered of space, but space touches them. Then what we're also seeing, it is about how we can position Europe as a commercial hub. This has been a little bit of a challenge. In the past, I used to work a lot with venture capital, and something that stuck to me was that Europeans invest for wealth preservations, while in other places like America, they invest from wealth generation. And this is very telling of how we want to do. If we want to become a center to developing things, what we need to do, it is encourage people to invest, to grow. And that's how we do that, by attracting the companies, by attracting the opportunities. But also we need to be able to attract talent. We need to bring engineers, scientists, but also we need to consider other aspects that many times we don't consider about space. Business, banking, and many, many more, right? But not just that. What we want to do is spearhead the development of cutting-edge European technologies. Europe has been great at developing a lot of initial capabilities and technologies, but sometimes we're lacking the power and the strength to do the next step, that it is industrializing it. I was joking with somebody and I told them, like, we are great at making Parmigiano. It is a traditional cheese, it's very good, but you don't get it everywhere in the world. You need to get a specific grade. But you can get the Kraft singles in every burger around the world. So this is the difference between something that is more traditional and something that goes above and beyond. And this is something that we need to take a look about how space can be treated. It's not just a niche that it is very traditional. If we want to really expand to the next level, we need to start thinking about how these technologies go into the next level, how we can really become from 1 to 100 or 1,000. Then the last one that we have, it is called Inspire Europe. And for us, it is very important to consider this because we are, as I was saying, a very diverse continent. We have multiple players, we have multiple languages, and we also have a complex history. Many of us were friends, foes, lovers, enemies. So all of this is part of who we are in Europe. But what we have been doing in the last decades is unite ourselves. And we think that we can do the same and strengthening that in Europe. So we're working very hard to unite the European space ecosystem, to work together. The other one that we have, it is inspire the future generations. I mentioned already about talking with the young generations about if you want to achieve something by 2040, we need to kind of include the young generations. But what about even younger generations? Many times you must have known a lot of kids now that they don't want to be astronauts, they don't want to be astronomers, they want to be a TikTok dancers, or they want to be doing streamers. This is good, but I think that what's happening is that they're missing the dream. There was a very interesting article that was saying cyberspace is killing space as an inspiration for people. And I think that space can be something amazing. Many of us had posters when we were growing up of the Apollo rockets, of nebulas. There's so much in space that can inspire us. Today here we were listening about the natives, the first tribes here in Australia, and how much the stars were guiding them and inspiring them. So this is something we need to bring back to our people. And the last one, it is called, it's space diplomacy. We, as an organization, cannot do space diplomacy. We are an international organization, but we can become a tool for member states to go further, to kind of like share their messages and to open doors that space can open. Now, this was a great vision. We want to do this. But a strategy is nothing if you don't have action points. What's coming next? And then this is what we're going now, from vision to action. Here I put a word that it is CM25. Many of you will not know, but it is an internal term in the agency. CM represents Council at Ministerial level. Every 3 years, our member states gather together and they decide what are the objectives and the funding that we're going to put into space for the upcoming 3 to 5 years. And then this has been helping us to build a little bit of the capabilities that we need. So what we're seeing this is that these ministerials are becoming stepping stones to help us do. We have a very important one this year in November. Germany is going to be our host, and we're very excited to see what we can put there. But then we have another one in CM28, 31, and the idea here it is that we consider all of these events as stepping stones that allows us to go into the next step. And what we're going to be doing, we're talking with our member states, we're talking with the industry, we're talking with our partners to see how we can shape it all together. Now, we believe at ESA that space has never been a solitary pursuit. It's engraved in our DNA. Since the beginning, we know that the progress comes with nations joined together. We share risks and we celebrate discoveries together. And with the Strategy 2040, ESA is stepping forward with this ambition, not to act alone, but to strengthen the global space community. And with that, I thank you, everybody. We're trying to elevate the future of Europe. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Hi, Herberto.
Hi, hello.
I'm wondering if you can elaborate a bit more around how you build capacity across different kinds of states in the different types of ESA programs and ESA strategies around not just enabling your prime industry, your prime contractors, but also emerging small startups, SMEs, to be able to actually hire the people beyond the technologists. So you've got your engineers, you've got your researchers, but also the supportive folks, you know, your finance, your law, your business people that actually make it possible to have a sustainable space ecosystem across European countries.
Well, we actually, in Agenda 25 was the first strategy that our DG created. And then based on that, we created what it was the Commercialization Directorate. Geraldine Naya, it's our director there, and actually she's here in IAF because she's also vice president, and she's focusing also in how we can bring that together. And by doing this, we try to engage into what it is happening on the site, not the traditional space, right? We call it new space. I know it's an old term, but it's still how we call this new. So we're doing that. We're launching a lot of different initiatives to kind of like include the startups, little companies. So we're trying to see how we do that. It's a new world, and we're exploring, and it is exciting because we see a lot of this happening. We can also refer to the two last challenges that we have. One of them was the European Launcher Challenge that was also a response to go into the different way of doing businesses and doing this kind of like a new innovation. And we have selected a couple of launchers to be able to prove that. And this is like we call a startups approach. We also have the LEO cargo return sample, that it is another proposal that we're having with different startups that are bringing this onto Earth.
Very nice presentation. Thank you so much. It's so great to see the European Union put forward this strategy. And as somebody who has been studying workforce challenges in the United States for the space sector, I was particularly happy to see that you put talent in as one of your clear areas. How are you planning to, if you could just give us a little bit of detail on how are you planning to attract talent, prepare people, to do all the wonderful things that you want to do through this strategy?
Perfect. Thanks so much. First of all, just a point to clarify, we are not European Union. We're the European Space Agency because we also include the UK, Switzerland, and Norway that are also part of our member states. We work very closely with the European Union. Actually, we have a very good relationship, but we are different entities, just so everybody is aware of that. How are we doing it? Well, we, let's be honest, space is still very attractive. So we can attract a lot of great engineers and talent. It is out there, but we're also doing a strong emphasis on outreach. We have a new revamp of the communication that we're doing, and we're doing a really different way. And I think that we're doing great there. We're going to different job fairs. We also have in ESA what we call the education office, and what they do is they go from elementary school to higher levels to be able to educate and tell them how this is going. I was talking yesterday with one of my colleagues, and we have a really nice initiative. He was telling me that you come to the school, to the kids, and you teach them how to fly a satellite, and then they're able to take a photo from the satellite from their school. So this is something really exciting for the kids. Then we go into higher levels. We can do postdoc research openings there in ESA. Then we can also go to what we have, the European ESA young graduates. So that is after you finish school, you can work with us for 1 or 2 years, and you get an idea of what we're doing. The idea here is not to stay, but understand, and then you can go outside. We have opened a different approach that is also the junior professional program. And this is for people who are around 4 years of experience, so they're not so young but not so experienced, so they can join with us, and they have the possibility to rotate into different departments, so they can gather experience, and then they can go and go beyond, right? Another aspect that we have, it is what we call the ESA transformation. It's an exercise that has been running more or less at parallel of our strategy development, and we are preparing to become a much more agile organization, to create opportunities and see where we can be ready, because we're 50 years old, so we need to get rid of some of our old habits to be ready for the future.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. Very interesting, and you provided us sufficient details. I would like to ask you if you can expand a little bit. So you discussed about the 5 goals that are included in the ESA 2040 space strategy. And one of them has 3 sub-goals: circular economy, space weather and planetary defense, and climate change. I would like to ask you if you can expand a little bit on the measures regarding space sustainability on Earth. So not on space, but on Earth. What kind of activities and projects is ESA involved? How are these projects also coordinating with the European Union? How does they relate with the European Union Space Act proposals, for example? Thank you.
Perfect. So, and you mean more about climate change, right? And sustainable use of resources. Yes. So, this has been something very clear to our narrative. We believe, first of all, just so everybody knows here, Europe is warming twice as fast as any other parts on the planet there. So this is something that it is very important for Europe to make sure that we're in a sustainable world. We have warm weather in Europe, even though we're very north in latitude, and it is because of the jet stream. So if climate change affects what we're doing here, it's going to affect us a lot. Now, what we're doing, first of all, we started last ministerial in CM22. We launched what we call a digital twin Earth. So the idea it is together, we record around 250 terabytes of data of Earth observation every day. So the idea is using this data to create much better decisions for policy making. So all of this data is coming here. We have something that it is called the Future EO program, and what we do is we launch new missions that help us visualize new ways of understanding our planet and the climate. So these become precursors to different missions that help us see. Regarding to our internal work, we launched what it is called the ISA Green Agenda. It is our path to sustainability, and it is something that actually is also in my department. And what we're doing, it is trying to ensure that we're not just taking nice photos and everything, but we are a sustainable organization and leading by example. Regarding to the work with the European Union and the new Space Act, we also have a team that, from my team actually, our Chief Sustainability Officer has been participating into this to be able to communicate.
Thank you very much. That was really interesting. I love that one of your strategies is about inspiring people. I'm a science communicator and I love space, and I think every single person in this room loves space, but I think there's a very large proportion of the world that are afraid of space, or they're intimidated by it. Or so when it comes to inspiring, how do you propose to break down those barriers in order for people to get the wider message of why space inspires?
So I think we have different approaches and angles, and I think that it would be great to have our head of communications, Anne-Sophie, to explain a bit more of the whole strategy. But we are working very closely. For example, we work with Playmobil to have the ISA little Playmobiles. We're trying to work also with the toy makers. We also work with Panini, that it was able to do kind of like an album for kids, you know, to put their stamps. But this is just one step. We're also working closer with social media creators and everything to go into, you know, being hip, to talk to young people. But at the same time, we're trying to diversify and talking to people who are generally not space. And I think this is an important point we need to be able to explain. Then we have also the political aspects. Many times we have great politicians who understand the connection between space and what we're doing, but many times we don't, and then they don't see how the situation is, right? This was not a politician, but it was a colleague of mine, a friend, who asked me, like, can you explain me why are we launching satellites if I have a GPS on my phone? And it was like, well, because the GPS is not on your phone, right? It's just sensing. So there's a lot of these broken links that we need to be able to do. And if we show them that at the end of the day, your food arrives on time is because of navigation, and your food, it is healthy because of the satellites, and all of these things is something that starts to get much more closer, because we get people who are really eager and excited about space, but we get people who are more pragmatic, and they're going to tell me, why do I need to spend money into that? So we need to find a balance to communicate that.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Actually, you talked about talent and the future, actually. So I was wondering, like, do you have anything that actually ensures inclusivity and diversity, whether it's like minorities or like gender or, you know, underrepresented groups?
Sure. So by default, ESA is very diverse with 23 countries. So this is very diverse, but we also have our Chief of Diversity Officer that it is working into this aspect. You must have seen a photo we got there. It is John McFall. It is the first para-astronaut. So we're thinking about how we can really bring diversity into multiple layers, and how we can really consider diversity not just about you know what, it is sex or religion or anything, but it is encompassing everything. And as I said, this is something that really benefits to us. We are talking, for example, of bringing people with disabilities. We have also people with different backgrounds. And at the same time, I think that it is important to highlight that We are very strong in leadership represented from the female side. I think we get between 30 to 40% of female in the executive board. So we are really, of course, it's always more. It's a constant thing, like Kaizen. We cannot stop there, but we're working into this direction.
Okay, there's only time for one quick questions.
Thank you. So we mentioned sustainability for Earth. So I have a question for sustainability on space. Mm-hmm. How do you view that the inequality on the global or space orbit resource? Because right now, major space powers are mostly the launching of the satellites and ownership from in major space powers like China, US, and Europe, right? Is it possible for us to get a global tax and then make a global space governance fund and make more accessible or equitable access to those developing countries to get the space service?
So I didn't grab the question, sorry.
So the question is it possible for US, China, or Europe to set up a global tax fund and use it to help the developing countries to get the global service? Because right now the orbits are limited. It might be limited, and all those orbits are occupied by China, US, and Europe.
That's a very interesting question. I am not sure if I'm the correct person to answer because I'm not China or US. But when we're talking about sustainability in space, we're working very close, and I get a couple of colleagues here of operations here on the space traffic management, and this is something very important. And at the same time, we also, at ESA, we launched what it is the Zero Debris Charter, and it is to include a lot of companies and countries to sign to ensure that, first of all, the majority of our missions can be or returned to Earth or refuel, to make sure that we are not kind of just polluting this point. Regarding to how we handle this fund, I think, I'm sorry, it's beyond my realm. Perfect. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. It was Heriberto Saldivar to present the ESA 2040 strategy. Now, if you stay in the room, in about 10 minutes, we will have a new GNF session called Leveraging AI and Emerging Technologies to Drive Innovation and Economic Impact in Space. Thank you.
That space innovation creates a broader economic and societal impact. This session reflects on our mission to foster dialogue at the intersection of policy, technology, and economic development. With that, allow me to welcome our panelists for today, His Excellency Salim Al-Marri, Director General of Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center, His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Lahbabi, Senior Advisor for Space and Cyber Technologies at Edge Group, and Dr. Ilyas Tsotstian, Chief Researcher at the Technology Innovation Institute. So let's begin with our discussion. First question, Your Excellency Salim, how is artificial intelligence being integrated into mission control, robotic systems, and future interplanetary operations to enhance performance and autonomy? Maybe you can give us, first, you can start with the basics, maybe an introductory of how AI is actually being embedded in the space design, and then you can give us a more deeper overview with regards to your center activation of AI technologies in your missions as well.
Sure, thank you very much, Fatima, and good afternoon, everybody. So I'll start with just giving a very quick overview of what it is that we do at the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center. So we're really focused on 5 main areas, and AI does play a role in most of these 5 areas. So the first area is satellite systems development, And this is really what the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center started with about 20 years ago, which was the ability to build and launch and operate useful satellites for our country, mainly Earth observation satellites. Today we operate very high resolution optical and SAR satellites that are being built in the United Arab Emirates. We started this program about 20 years ago with collaboration with South Korea, and we still cooperate with our partners in SATRIC initiative there. Our second area was Mars exploration, jointly with the UAE Space Agency, and we launched our Mars mission, Mars Hope, in 2020. The third area, which is also very important for us, is human spaceflight, and that's really, I think, a big goal for our country, that we become a major player in human spaceflight exploration and be an active player and have a sustainable program where every couple of years one of our 4 astronauts is going on a useful, meaningful space mission for the country. Our fourth area is moon exploration, and this is where we're building small robotic rovers and sending them to the moon. We launched Rashid Rover 1 a couple of years ago, along with our partners iSpace. Unfortunately, that lander and rover crashed on the surface of the moon. Now we are launching our second one next year with our partners, and hopefully we're able to successfully land this time. The fifth and final one is the Gateway Space Station, which is part of the Artemis program. And this is really one of our largest cooperations, I think, for MBRC and for the United Arab Emirates. So we have a government-to-government strategic partnership with the United States signed with NASA, where the UAE will provide the airlock system for the Gateway Space Station, and in turn we'll have seats for our astronauts to go to the space station when it's operational in the 2030s. So that's very exciting for us, that from starting 20 years ago to looking to the future, where you'll have Emirati astronauts orbiting and working alongside their international colleagues around the moon. Now, to go to your question, which is about AI, I think AI plays a role in many different areas. Today we use it a lot. It can help us for programming, can help us for analysis. But I think one key area that I'll focus on is on the data itself. So a lot of our data is used for town planning, environment, different applications. There are hundreds of applications that can be used, and every entity has something different. So when we bring AI and machine learning to come in and help support us, it could be in space, where we are analyzing that data and downloading what's useful, so we're more efficient in downloading the data that we require, or on the ground, where we're able to get an image, quickly analyze it, get the data that we require, and give it to our customers within minutes, or rather than hours or days. So I think AI is a game changer in terms of utilization of satellite data in a more efficient way for our government. Thank you.
Maybe adding more to, maybe a follow-up question to what you've just mentioned. You tapped into the utilization of data for, with regards to AI. What about the satellite design? Your center did work on several satellite missions. So if we look at the optimization of satellite design with using AI, definitely it has an impact on boosting operational efficiency, reducing the development and operational costs. So as a center, are you looking into that perspective with the future missions you're planning?
Absolutely. So I think something that we're looking at very specifically is 3D printing. And we have just procured very large 3D printers that can, of course, help us in terms of making our manufacturing process much easier. But the unique thing about these is that you can also design the components using AI to get the most efficient design. And then, of course, because you have a 3D printer, you're able to quickly print those, test them out. And AI also does a lot of the testing for you, so that at least what you get is the most efficient design going forward. So we've seen private companies in the UAE do that. We are partnering with them to bring that capability to MBRC and shift that towards our satellite systems development. So whatever we can design using AI, make it more efficient using AI, and then print it and send it to space.
That's amazing. Maybe now let's move to Dr. Mohammed. If we look at how AI is transforming raw space data into actionable intelligence across industries, maybe if you can reflect on that with regards to your organization. What are your plans with regards to leveraging this opportunity?
Okay, thank you, Fatma, and a pleasure to be here in this panel. I would like to say a few words about FADA.
Yes.
So FADA is a UAE national space company that established 1 year ago. FADA belongs to Edge Group. Edge Group is one of the fastest growing defense group of company. And it has around 35 companies and more than 13,000 people. So the group, figure out that FADA is the next frontier. Then this FADA established last year. FADA is mandated to build the sovereign space capabilities in UAE and also provide advanced secure space solutions. So the DNA of FADA is a strategic partnership, either locally or regionally or internationally. FADA now has active projects. It's less than 1 year old, but alhamdulillah, thanks for the space agency and other space entities in UAE, FADA has some contracts. When it comes to AI, FADA for the first phase is focusing on Earth observation. Could be optical, could be SAR, could be other payloads. And this is where AI, as His Excellency Salim mentioned, AI is a tool that can, of course, speed the acquisition of data. When it comes to data analytics, AI can do this in a fast way and also can provide easy interface between the data and the end user. And we have a product developed jointly with the TII called Tactica. Tactica is a tool that the end user or the user can talk to it as when you talk to ChatGPT to give you information about a location. So if you want to ask, okay, what's the activities in a certain location in last week, then that tool will provide you with information, even will give you alarm if there is abnormal activities in that location. So this is all AI. AI also is now within FADA because onboard processing is a key, especially to speed the process when you relay the data from satellite to ground. This is very critical. Time is very critical for some users, they get the information. So it's part of the future design. When they design satellite, they consider onboard processing and also on data analytics. So I think AI will be utilized in Earth observation for sure, both in the space segment and the ground segment.
That's amazing. Maybe you've mentioned that you're a 1-year-old entity, yes. So you're just established, which means that you're currently looking into creating successful partnerships locally as well as internationally, yeah, sure. And most importantly, having new projects to be implemented. You've mentioned Tactica as one of the examples where you might utilize AI. Maybe further questions, how can platforms such as Tactica or maybe other projects that you will be tapping into in the future will be utilizing AI, such as for Earth observation, satellite imagery, or even mission design for any of the other projects that you're currently working on?
So we are working on a project with the space agency called SIRP. It's a constellation of radar satellites. Sure, in the future, there will be a lot of data. Yes. So AI will play a critical role just to process that data, provide the end user with the information they want in a timely fashion. I'm sure AI now is embraced by most of leading space nations, companies. And I think UAE is well set for that, journey. TII is working on a large LLM platform. UAE is embracing, AI, and I think the space sector within UAE will utilize, the country commitment and also investment in AI this is, of course, I think, the future will be, of course, everybody is talking about AI now.
Yes.
And I think it's going to be utilized in space.
So, Dr. Ilyas, Dr. Mohammed said where the country is investing heavily on the AI technologies, and since you're from an organization that is focusing on innovation, technology innovation, that leads me to my question. How can the integration of quantum computing and AI revolutionize problem solving for deep space missions and satellite operations?
Thank you very much, Fatima. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks to the organizers for setting up this panel. Before answering your question, let me give a few words about the TII for the audience. So we are a 5-year-old organization. Our mandate is to strategically position Abu Dhabi as a global R&D hub, focused on applied R&D. Our second strategic objective is to contribute to the knowledge economy of the country. So we need to make sure that we solve real problems, real challenges. So we don't do research just for the sake of the research. And the third thing is to establish a strong collaborations with entities, organizations, research institutes across the world in order to help us move faster. So TII consists of 9 research centers covering a wide spectrum of research areas from AI, quantum, cryptography, advanced materials, renewable energy, sustainable energy, propulsion in space, that I'm the chief researcher of, cryptography, autonomous robotics. So we have a wide spectrum of, let's say, capabilities that cover most of the innovative technologies. When it comes to quantum and AI and how these can help us into the future for deep space missions and planning, quantum computers is a relatively new area. It's mostly on the R&D phase. There is a strong, however, trend to invest heavily into this technology, because imagine a future where you can solve the most complex mathematical problem in a few seconds. So that gives immense power to the people that use that information. Before we reach that phase, however, there is a strong emphasis on quantum algorithms, quantum mechanics. So we see several space organizations, entities across the world to invest heavily on testing different algorithms for solving complex problems. Quantum computing is going to be heavily tasked of working with a vast amount of data for doing calculations, for estimating optimum solutions. It can handle complex optimization problems that can translate into mission planning. There are indications that through quantum computing, there is a potential to reduce the time that is needed for mission planning by 90%, which gives a significant advantage. But quantum computing, if you blend it with AI, AI is a very powerful tool and capability. We see bold investments from the country, major deals and collaborations with different countries and stakeholders. So AI currently is going to lead this transition until we reach to quantum computing. And then we're going to have a combination of the two where we can have quantum computing to solve complex optimization problems that might be related to space mission planning, while AI, which is very powerful of learning patterns from data, can be used to make real-time decisions. This is not enough, however. It has to be mentioned that we have to make investments in infrastructure for the future. So in UAE, we launched almost 1.5 years ago the Abu Dhabi Quantum Optical Ground Station. This is it was the first in the region and the largest in the region. So that gives a flavor about the, let's say, future vision of the country and the organization. We also invest in quantum key distribution for safe communications. This is something that we have demonstrated at the latest GITEX event with UAE Space Agency. So this gives a flavor of that the UAE is investing into having a secure and quantum-ready infrastructure today, and in order to prepare for the advancement of technology when the quantum computing is going to be available.
Okay. So you covered maybe the first fold where we looked at the optimization of systems using AI. What about the autonomous systems? So we can definitely use AI to empower autonomous systems. So what do you foresee as the future for spacecrafts and rover missions? And how TII is specifically contributing towards that objective?
Yes, AI is it's a very powerful tool. We have invested a lot in this technology. We have currently one project called Spacecraft AI. It covers different segments of the operations. So when we're talking about spacecrafts or rovers, one of the activities is to develop hardware, AI-enabled hardware and software. These are essentially digital processing units for the Emirates mission to the asteroid lander. So we have a team of UAE engineers and researchers, along with our world-class experts, leading that activity, which is fascinating to work on a real project that you're going to work on a lander that's going to be in a mission for several years. It gives unique challenges. So the AI capability there is that we can use this technology to do onboard classification, compression, and we transmit only what is necessary for the spacecraft.
That's nice. Maybe now a follow-up question to all panelists. As the space economy grows more connected, how can AI-driven cybersecurity solutions ensure the resilience and safety of space assets and data infrastructure? So maybe Dr. Ilyas, and then we can move to the next panelist as well.
Yes. When it comes to cybersecurity, we don't realize how complex the future might be. What do I mean by that? The AI is a very useful tool that everyone can use to, let's say, to detect anomalies in the space, let's say, ecosystem, something that is very hard for humans to do. On a second note, to respond to these actions, to this information. And the third point is to predict maybe failures. So AI by its own is not enough. So you need a lot of governance, you need audits, you need human oversight at every step in the process. This is where cybersecurity comes and plays an important role. Currently, there are challenges about what's going to happen about all this sensitive information being transmitted from one system to the other. And even as we talk today, there are, let's say, sensitive information where adversaries are collecting that information. There is the known, let's say, pattern of, harvest now, decrypt later. With the let's say, hope that these adversaries will be able to decrypt the information when the post-quantum, let's say, computing era is going to be, active. So that means that post-quantum cryptography is an essential tool to help us protect and make sure that the space, let's say, ecosystem is an ecosystem that is characterized by trust and resilience. Without that, everything that we produce, everything that we send, it's prone to be used for wrong purposes.
Thank you. Your Excellency Salim.
Well, I think Dr. Ilyas really covered the majority of that topic. I think what I will add is that, as you mentioned, AI on its own is not enough. So we're always looking at the way AI can make us more efficient, make us faster. And I think in this domain, that same rule applies, basically.
So from security side, within it, there is a cluster called Space and Cyber Technology. So Fada is belong to that cluster, but they have a sister companies who is focusing on cybersecurity. So this is, of course, will enhance, I think the system, the design, the product that eventually will be out through Fada. I think when it comes to AI and how, cybersecurity, I think AI can help to identify probably, certain gaps, backdoors, but at the same time, there's a race between the good guys and the bad guys. So the bad guys probably also will utilize AI to find certain, niche or certain, access to data. One of the things that it's promising is this quantum technology, I think, especially with TII is working on and, the quantum key distribution. I think there will be very soon a test from space to ground testing, the key distribution. But I think it's race forever, between cybersecurity. But I think AI, probably we need to be more optimistic. But as His Excellency and Dr. Elias, it's not enough. The human being also is considered to be a key factor in cybersecurity.
Yes. Maybe last question to all. I'm looking for more of a strategic answer. Looking ahead, what do you see as the biggest opportunity? Maybe if we look at it from the UAE perspective, we understand that the downstream applications, or it's considered maybe a promising market for our industry. But strategically looking, what is your perspective? Maybe as an individual organization, but then for the entire space economy, how do you see it as an opportunity raising in the future? So, Dr. Mohammed?
I think it's space is big enough to accommodate, many activities. I think what UAE, the space sector in UAE is mature. I think it's diverse. The foundation and the bases are there. Space agency, through regulation, through fund, through monitoring and promoting and facilitating, the growth of the space sector is provide, opportunity to all space entities. I think also what MBRC is doing is so great, in terms of space exploration, in terms of human space flight. So all this collectively, I think it will advance, UAE space sector to future, opportunities. I'm really optimistic, and I think tomorrow is better than today.
Thank you very much. I think when we look at the future, when we look at the UAE as a country, or even if we look at entities such as my own, Mohammed Barasha Space Center, we're relatively small. And how are we able to achieve large objectives with a smaller amount of people and do those things more efficiently and quickly? And what we are looking at in the next 5 years is to position AI to really help us in that area. So how can we achieve very big missions with 200 people? AI can play a big role in that. So if we look 5 years down the line, or if we look at exploration missions currently, you might send a rover to the surface of the moon for 2 weeks operation. You'll send a rover to Mars, as the US is doing, for 2 or 3 years operation. If you had sent a human to the moon, he could do what that rover is doing in 2 weeks in probably an hour. And if you send a human to do what a rover on Mars is doing for 3 years, it might take him 2 or 3 weeks. So a human is much more efficient than a robotic system that is managed remotely with the lag, the time delay, etc. So if we fast forward 5 years down the line where you're sending systems to Mars that are very efficient, are AI-driven, don't have to keep communicating back and forth, and if they're able to take decisions and take actions quickly, then maybe they're able to do more than what our robotic systems are doing today. So that's what we hope to do with our smaller systems, have them powered and independent so they're able to take, let's say, decisions and be much more efficient.
Okay. Thank you.
From a technology point of view, I would suggest that 2 or 3 technologies that are key. Today, we're talking about technologies like AI, quantum, cybersecurity. And if we look back, let's say 10 years ago, these were not, let's say, making the headlines. But in the future, I think all these three technologies are going to merge in order to serve a purpose. Now we're talking about space. We're going to talk about, how we operate within space, from detection of debris, from planning missions, from, let's say, leveraging the power of AI or quantum computing and making sure that the ecosystem is also safe. I just want to, give another example that I forgot previously. So recently, 1 week ago, in Abu Dhabi, there was an agreement between TII and NVIDIA to establish a joint laboratory, an AI and robotics laboratory. It's the first in the region. The focus is mostly on applied robotics and AI. So that gives you a flavor of, let's say, the direction that the country is taking into leveraging AI for applied use cases. Of course, tools like, LLMs, ChatGPT, and other, capabilities help us go faster. Quantum can make us smarter because it solves problems that it takes ages to solve. And cybersecurity are going to make, the entire ecosystem more safe for everyone.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Maybe if I were to summarize your inputs in 2 words, that would be optimization and efficiency. Now, we'll open the floor to the audience questions. I'll be selecting the toughest questions for our panelists. So, we'll start with the easiest. No, I'll be kind. Is the UAE seeking to partner with other organizations on research on AI applications for space? So this is just an open question to any of our panelists. Should you like to answer?
I'll give a few comments, and I think probably Doctor. Yes, we are. So I think currently we sign a lot of agreements with different countries on how we can cooperate using data from our satellites. The most recent one was in Colombia, so we signed with our Colombian colleagues an agreement on using our radar and optical data in the forests and jungles of Colombia. And then, of course, AI is a big part of that. So to make that more accessible to them, to give them the tools, we can jointly develop those tools or work with the tools that we've developed. So we've recently started including that as part of our cooperation suite. So I think that's one example, but we have many going forward that when we distribute our data, sometimes we're actually not giving them the data, we're giving them the result from the analysis. So it's really just the information that they want rather than a satellite image.
That's amazing. Maybe question for Dr. Ilyas. Can you share how quantum computing AI can increase design and implementation efficiency in space engineering and perhaps military applications?
Okay. So I can just give a simple example. Take, for example, Navier-Stokes equations. They do not have a closed form solution. We have recently, explored this ecosystem of challenging, let's say, setting up a problem like that with quantum algorithms. So the feedback that we get is that you can reach to a solution much faster of complex, let's say, fluid phenomena to have a solution. And that can accelerate every type of simulation that today needs a lot of compute just for a single, let's say, result. If you take, let's say, a complicated system, you do some thermal analysis, you put all the components, all the geometries. In the most efficient computer, it might take you, let's say, 10 hours. Now with quantum, that makes it, in 1 second. So that gives you an insight that you can create a very big library of solutions that you can then push through AI to learn from this data and come up with the optimum solution for your system that you're designing. Now for the defense part, whatever we're doing is dual use. So space, the technologies that we are developing can serve one sector and the other.
Thank you, Doctor. This is an interesting question. So how should accountability be defined when AI makes critical decisions in space? for anyone. Maybe this is more of a policy related question. So, Dr. Mohammed, I know you love these questions.
Okay. I think it's going to be hard, but I think with the AI itself and other measures, probably, maybe the industry or the technology can play to avoid any mistake. When it comes to regulation, I'm sure the space agency, and especially Fatma, will try to find the solution.
I have a solution. We can just fire the AI.
This is based on my humble knowledge. This is one of the critical, maybe topics. Sorry, now I'll be a panelist, one of the speakers. Maybe this is, maybe this is one of the hot topics that is currently being discussed. It is fairly difficult to determine the accountability and maybe the ethical part of utilizing AI. So, so we'll see what the future holds with regards to that. This is a question for you, Your Excellency. Which emerging technologies will have the fastest impact on UAE space sector in the next 24 months?
That's a good question. I think space things tend to be slower. So I think 24 months is, for me, 2 years. I wouldn't see a huge change. But what I would say, if I focus specifically on what we're doing, it's what I already mentioned, which is 3D printing. So I think within the next 24 months, we will see a lot of 3D printed materials, 3D printed at MBRC, and then put as part of our prototyping and as part of our systems, whether they are rovers or satellites.
Dr. Ilyas, do you have any input with regards to that?
For us, the focus for the next 24 months is, split into 2 or 3 things. So one of them is to make sure that the team that is involved with the design of the lander makes it on time, because the schedules are really tight for the emergency mission to the asteroid. So this is one big, objective and milestone. The other one, we're focusing on rocket propulsion. So we're also very busy with making sure that we have everything ready in terms of infrastructure, people, software, hardware, integration capabilities in order to be able to demonstrate some of the technologies in UAE. And the third thing is to implement AI across all the activities of what we do as much as we can.
Maybe last question. If you were to choose reliability or speed, which of these will be the most one making money for the applications of AI? So, which is more important, reliability of AI powered systems or the speed of the applications itself of utilizing AI?
I will say it depends on the cost. So if cost is, the most important metric, then speed is, we have to go with speed. If cost is not the number one objective, then reliability is very key for our sector. I mean, we cannot, let's say, just send technologies to space without knowing if reliable enough to make it and succeed to the mission. So it's a combination of both. There is an optimum point.
Yeah, I think I would go with the reliability. I think in terms of space, or in terms of AI, I think you still need that human element. So the more reliable it is, the more we can trust it. That would be more important for us.
Dr. Mohammed.
Yeah, I think, if you look to the global space, activities, people try to find the technical solutions before they think about the legal impact. They say, okay, this is, will come later, because it's hard to, have a, agreement about, a lot of space, challenges. So I think, as I mentioned, I think all the companies, the nations, will continue doing technical, advancing AI, advancing robotics, quantum. Then I think on the hope that the legal side will be solved later.
Thank you, Doctor. So we reached the end of our session for today. Thank you to our distinguished panelists for sharing such forward-looking insights, and to our audience for your engagement. The main message today is clear. AI is no longer just an enabler, it's becoming the foundation of how we innovate and create economic value in space. With that, I thank His Excellency Salim Murri, Dr. Mohammed Lahbabi, and Dr. Ilyas for joining us today. And to our audience, I hope you enjoyed the rest of the GNF sessions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Fatima Al-Shamsi for the session, and of course also to the speakers. Please stay in the room as we have in 20 minutes another GNF session, which will be the last of the day, called Ocean Intelligence Using Space Data. Thank you. this VNF session is called Ocean Intelligence Using Space Data. Please join me in welcoming on the stage Arti Ola Meini, Director of the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this session on ocean intelligence using space data. I'd like you to imagine a small fishing village here in the Indo-Pacific. The ocean is their lifeline. But in recent years, waters have got warmer, storms are more unpredictable, and fish are harder to find. From the shore, the changes feel overwhelming. But from space, satellites can trace the shifting currents, they can track illegal vessels, and they can even spot early signs of coral bleaching. With the help of AI, that data can become life-saving intelligence, warning a village before a cyclone, guiding fishermen and fisherwomen to sustainable stocks, or helping a government protect fragile reefs. This is what we mean by ocean intelligence using space data. But intelligence, in my view, is worthless unless we complement it with in situ knowledge and unless we equip those who need it most with the ability to use it. Today, we're here to explore how this perspective from above can empower communities on the ground at local level, especially across the Indo-Pacific, where the stakes couldn't be higher. So please join me in welcoming our panel. Christian Høgli Hansen from the Norwegian Space Agency, please. Madine Massey, President of the Maldives Space Research Organization. Dawn McIntosh, Director of Space Systems at Fugger, Australia. And Atsushi Takata, EVP for Global Strategy and Space Utilization at Space Data Inc. And now I get to sit down. So we are hoping that our colleague from Tonga will still join us, but we're going to kick off the conversation anyway. I want to start actually with Madin, as you're the representative of, an island region, an island in this region. You've told me before that the Maldives relies on key industries like tourism and fishing, yet the Maldives are facing existential threats. So beyond the long-term monitoring, what is the single most crucial daily or weekly ocean data product that could really provide your nation with what it needs going forward?
Where do I begin? I think there's something very important to understand with how the Maldives uses the ocean. And perhaps there's a slight difference in, I'm not sure there are too many countries that can say this, but we have the most sustainable fisheries sector in the world. We don't really have a problem with fish stock within the Maldives. The problem that we have is because we only have pole and line fishing in the Maldives, our fishermen work extra hard to catch their daily catch. That means that they rely on traditional knowledge passed down from generation to generation on where the bait fish is, which you have to get up early in the morning before sunrise to catch, sometimes a dangerous activity, and then actually go out to find where the schools of tuna are. One of the issues with climate change is that it has disrupted the weather systems, disrupted how the oceans within the Maldives, which is 99% of our territory, which means that now the fishermen cannot rely on the indigenous passed down knowledge of where the fish are and their movements. And this is where space data has a real role to play. We know that tuna do not like certain types of ocean state, sea state, like higher temperatures, for example. If we know where the higher temperature spots in the ocean are, the fisheries ministry, the agencies involved in helping the fishermen can provide the timely data needed for them to make better decisions. For a local fisherman in the Maldives, time is money and also fuel, which means that by being able to point where the fish might be or where the fish will definitely not be, they can save precious time and fuel in trying to find them. And so I would say sea surface temperature on a much higher frequency than we currently have is vital for our fishermen. Right now, unfortunately, our Ministry of Fisheries have had to rely on fish aggregating devices, which is not something we've had to use, but we have no choice because we need to help the fishermen better use their resources. So I would say that's probably one area we could really help them with.
Thank you, thank you. Dawn, can I come straight to you off the back of what Madin has just said? I wanted to ask you about looking at resilience, but also fishing, like we're hearing. What is the current time lag between satellite data acquisition and the delivery of actionable insights to a client or to a government agency, and what technologies are key to shortening that loop?
We certainly do need to solve this problem, or this is one of many problems we need to solve. From a technology perspective, several years ago now, maybe 5+ years ago, we were talking days from when the data was requested to when it was collected. Over the ocean, that problem still exists to some level. However, the current, there's a couple companies and couple programs that are really trying to reduce this problem. So there's some companies, LatConnect 60, which is here in Australia, is focusing on the marine side, the ocean viewing. So, Earth observing satellites exist everywhere. And then, so that means, sorry, let me step back for a second. With Earth observing, we're down to hours from when you put in the request to when you get the data. That's not true in the oceans, but it's becoming a reality that we need that to be true, not just for things like ocean temperatures, which is really important, but also for disaster relief, as you were speaking to. And so if companies like LatConnect 60 or Fugro has a product called EOMAP, which is doing bathymetry measurements at all times, which can help out. Those types of things we can get from a request to the data in your hands in hours. But those are built on constellations that take time to put together, and we're just starting that journey. So that's where we really are and where we need to get to.
Thank you, thank you. Christian, can I come to you? Now, there is a tremendous amount of goodwill in the global space sector. We talk about the Indo-Pacific, the small island states, and their needs, and so on. And I know that you, as NOSA, Norway, you've invested a tremendous amount in very high-resolution data, and you've been generous in making it available to those who need it. How do you react to what you've heard from Madin, knowing that this is a situation in this region?
First of all, I think it's, well, your introduction was very to the point, that you really need to look at this in a total value chain perspective, from actually acquiring the data and then distributing and then handling it preferably on a very near real-time, under real-time conditions to the end user. So getting hold of the data, what we're looking at in Norway is, as you say, we have been providing through the NICFI program very high resolution data. These are acquired commercially. So from Norway, we think it's important to hedge our position that we have available satellite data from the Copernicus program. We're a participant to the Copernicus program, and we are using Sentinel data both for our own purposes, and this is being part of the core Copernicus services. But as we have discussed previously, the availability and the accessibility of high-resolution data, for instance, for the Maldives is exceedingly important. But I think it's, in what way they are important is long-term, is acute in terms of, emergency situation, or long-term. That's when you get into the real-time element. So I think in terms of the end user, you have to really consider the total value chain. What are your data sources, and how are you going to put this together in what we call, in our industry, called multi-mission setup, in terms that you can either source it from one satellite source, or you can actually hedge between different sources in order to provide the end user.
Thank you. Let's build on that. Atsushi, There are many different sources of data available. We can think of SAR, optical, RF monitoring, and even IoT sensors. You're a commercial company, even though you've been working with the UN and giving us free digital twins. Thank you so much. Still a commercial company. But from a commercial standpoint, where do you see the greatest growth and innovation over the next 5 years? And what percentage of your client base is going to stay private sector, and what percentage do you see as being governments and coastal communities and Indo-Pacific islands, etc.?
Right. So first of all, the importance of the data is increasing in the both commercial and government, that's I can say. Like you said, the RF, SAR, opticals, hyperspectrum, a lot of the technology is evolving, and the mixture, the data fusion is, I think, very, very important for make the people to the right decisions. And that's why we are also doing a lot of R&D researches to put those data and to utilize it for the digital twin solutions for the both government and commercial sectors. And thanks to your work, that we are very happy to work with you for the support of small island nations. Unfortunately, Tonga is not here, but yeah, hopefully he will make up. And answering the question for the customer segmentation is that so far, the most of the client is the government for the decision making, but gradually we've been getting a lot of our interest from the commercial sectors as well, including the coastal regions, and beyond that, we have a lot of our inquiries from the energy regions for the ocean lines. Like wind power domes, they would like to get a very high resolution digital twin so that they can predict the future and how it goes. So we see a lot of our demand are getting bigger and bigger. And the regions, right? Right now, the biggest demand is in Japan, but I can see that can be increasing more in the globally, like you said, in the Pacific, Africa's, those nations.
Thank you. So, Madden, let me come back to you. We hear often from space agencies that there's free data available, it's open source, it's ready to use, just use it, you know. I talk about a data divide, but they counter that with there's so much data available for free. Why is that not enough?
I'm sorry, Christian, I might have to address this question by referencing NICFI a little bit. As an example, I think the issue isn't that there isn't enough data, is that there isn't enough relevant data for island nations like ours. Okay. I think fundamentally this is not an issue caused by commercial companies or agencies intentionally. Traditionally, a lot of the satellites have been sun-synchronous, serving polar orbits, and unfortunately, especially for the Maldives being on the equator, it means that we do have an unoptimized product that we get. But also for other island nations, because islands are really small and satellites struggle to identify islands and calibrate over islands. Over large pieces of the ocean, as you said, it is a real struggle. So there is an issue where, again, there is an opportunity where island nations can provide in situ data to validate, to calibrate. But a good example is, you know, NICFI is incredible for large continents, large land masses, and the intention was for these forests and everything. But for an island nation like ours, NICFI, you know, sometimes a whole island might be 1 pixel. Which is not the adequate resolution that we need. And so the reason we're working together in the Alliance as well is so that we can address this in the next generation of what is available publicly as well. And so, yes, there's a lot of data, more data than we can process, but not all of them are useful for nations like ours. Yeah.
And Christian, can I invite you to respond?
Well, I think you're pointing to something that's very important, and we did discuss this at the conference in Oslo a couple of years ago. You know, all the data is there, but is it useful? Can it actually be used for anything? So that then it boils down, I think, that for a nation like yours, you really have to consider, you know, what is available and through which agents. I mean, for instance, through UNOSA, the UN, that can provide a certain type of services, but you will probably find, as we do, that you know, the more generic Earth observation data or what you can get through the institutional data is not enough for your particular consideration. It may be partly relevant, but in that case, that is when you really have to consider, are you going to go into some kind of cooperation in order to make those data available? And this is becoming increasingly available because higher resolution, more spectral content, but you really have to consider what kind of structure you have on the data.
Thank you. Can I stay with you, Christian, for a second? You know, in today's geopolitical world, we hear that civil budgets are going down, more investment is going into defense, and so we see space agencies positioning themselves to secure more potentially defense budgets. What's your feeling on that, and whether it will impact the availability going forward of more sophisticated solutions and more high-resolution data?
Well, it may be a threat, but I think it also may be an opportunity, because there's a lot of talk on civil military dual use, and I really think that we need to exploit that to the highest extent, because that will save cost. In Norway, we have our challenges. A lot of what we're doing nationally is on maritime surveillance in the high north, bad weather. We need to have a mix between SAR observation, low-light imager. We just launched our NorSat 4, which has a very high-resolution optical low-light imager, and pure optical. And what we are doing in Norway is we are a civilian agency, but we have formalized our cooperation with the armed forces. They have their particular needs, but they also have their particular funding, which means that they can help us in order to facilitate this. But then you have the discussion on data policy. That becomes exceedingly important, because they are maybe paying for sourcing the data, and then they have their particular use. But then once that is filtered through the policy regime and their operational issues, that is when we are also cooperating with our National Coastal Authority, which is a civil organization. And then that feeds into their system, which is a multi-layered GIS system called Barents Watch, and where you have all the different information on, like you're addressing, in terms of water currents, water temperature, weather forecasting, high-resolution imagery, SAR, and everything. And so I really think that you can play both sides, but it is a challenge that sometimes the armed forces will sort of control the data.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, when we talk about very high resolution imagery, we know that either it's military, so it's not accessible, or it's commercial and it's too expensive. So maybe there is an opportunity, given that people will want more higher resolution Earth observation satellites for surveillance, perhaps, right?
Yeah, and to be honest, I think it's a challenge. In the Earth observation market, there has been a significant technology push. There's a lot of great initiatives on ever higher resolution, optical spectrum, and so forth. The question is there a market? If you follow the money on this, you will find that most of these contracts end up being paid by the government, and this is a fact. I really hope, and there's a lot of prospects in selling this as a purely commercial. In a purely commercial market, but so far this isn't actually working, because if you look at the planets, the Maxar, and all the commercial, they're tremendous in the technology development and the speed by which and eyesight by which they actually develop these payloads and launch satellites. But the question still remains: is this viable in a purely commercial fashion?
Thank you, Dawn. Can I come back to you? You're working for a commercial company, yet the kind of issues that we discuss go to the heart of the Sustainable Development Goals. Your duty as a commercial company is to your shareholders. You're meant to maximize profits and growth. How do you reconcile that with the needs of countries who are often from the global south, who do not have the means to be paying for the kind of services that commercial companies offer?
Very challenging problem, of course. So Figaro is in 40 different countries, and those countries, those are locally staffed. And so one of the ways that you solve these problems is by using local talent. And if you can use local talent and you can share that commercial knowledge from that local pool as well as all the other local pools, then you increase the chance of value add at any of these potentially more isolated or more, areas where there isn't the opportunity to have the large data sets or even the large volume of people working the problem. You can still take advantage of that, and you can use the local pool to do so. And that brings the cost down.
Thank you. And Sushi, coming to you, I mean, you're making the state-of-the-art, very sophisticated new products. Okay. Many end users, especially in developing countries, can't afford such bespoke commercial satellite data services like the ones that you produce with your digital twins. So what innovative business models or public-private partnership structures does space data see as most promising for making ocean intelligence commercially viable and accessible to those who need it the most?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Then I think that's a lot of challenges that we will face because we have a lot of demands from those countries, but we cannot provide free for those countries, unfortunately, as we are the private companies. So to answer that question, maybe the public-private partnership is going to be the one solution, or maybe like working with UNOSER, we can, for example, just create an organization or pool where everybody can go there and to get the data as necessary basis. For example, that type of the consortium might work with a lot of support from the government. So we have to see how we can work together and how we can collaborate to solve the program and to provide the solutions for those countries. That's what I believe. And like Christian mentioned, the data is very, very expensive. Well, not expensive, but they sell data per pixels. But I believe we have to provide that solution not per pixel, but per impact for the regions so that they can choose and they can get a necessary solution.
Thank you. Thank you. That's really good because it strikes me that the challenges that we're facing, they're so big, and yet there's so much money, so much philanthropy, so much development aid, which is actually going to these kind of challenges. And when I speak with commercial partners who are enabling the solutions, they can't access it because donors are not going to give to private companies directly. So I think your point, Atsushi, about partnering with entities like UNOSA, who can provide a credible front, and knowing that you're not going to rip us off, for want of a better word, is perhaps a good way of doing this public-private partnerships. Let's change track a little bit and go to one of the application areas, environmental crime, IUU fishing. Madin, let me come back to you. You talked about how the Maldives has, I didn't know that, the most sustainable fishing in the world. Very interesting. So given that your archipelago has a vast exclusive economic zone, how do you see space data enhancing maritime domain awareness to combat illegal fishing and ensure the sustainability of your vital marine resources?
I mean, I don't think there's any other alternative. We have an exclusive economic zone of 1 million square kilometers and a coast guard the size of probably less than 1,000. So if we do the maths, it doesn't add up. We are very blessed that, one, we have, in my opinion, one of the best coast guards in the world, at least in our region, that have for generations passed down the understanding of our oceans, the currents, the reefs. We do have some natural protections in the way the seasons, when they change, the wind directions, it does throw off some of the international fishing vessels if they don't really understand. And so there are some natural mechanisms through which we've been blessed, but unfortunately the reality is more and more there are encroachments happening in our EZ. We do rely heavily on AIS and a lot of the data that we have available. So the Coast Guard relies on AIS and coastal radar. But unfortunately, because of the way the Maldives is geographically dispersed vertically, we don't have a lot of stations for coastal radar. And so right now, the Coast Guard, through just like Christian said, we also work very closely with defense. In the case of the Maldives, defense is also in charge of maritime security and environmental security. And so our line ministry is the Ministry of Defense. So we work closely almost day to day with the Maldives National Defense Force, which the Coast Guard falls under. And so essentially, without space data, they are not going to be able to not only monitor the illegal fishing and IUU activity, but they can't also adjudicate them, because that's a very big challenge that usually goes understated. A lot of transnational crime that happens on the seas require certain types of data to actually get them adjudicated. We have international vessels that will go onto a coral reef, destroy them, causing millions of damage, incredible biodiversity loss, and the fines are either peanuts or sometimes we can't even find them. And so for a lot of these reasons, and it's not just vessels running aground, it's also drift nets, right? Like, how do you make sure that the islands and the ecosystem get repaid for the damage that are caused? You need space data. You need satellite data to be able to pinpoint when these things have happened, what happened exactly. And we do need the technology to also evolve and adapt. And we do see this happening. But like I think everyone here said, there is a huge cost barrier. And I do think there needs to be innovative financing mechanisms, partnership mechanisms to solve that. And one of the ways we're doing that is by trying to add value through this in situ validation, because a lot of these models that exist around the world right now don't really work with the current conditions. And for us, we have a really good experimental hotbed, so to speak. So we can provide a lot of data, and in return, maybe we can get data as well. So that's been the model thus far.
Okay, thank you. You know, yesterday I had a bilateral meeting with Tonga, and even though they're not here, they said that they also care about fishing. This is a massive issue for them as well. But even though they have access to data, they don't necessarily have the licenses required to be able to continually use and access that data. This is a problem which we don't often hear talked about. Is that an issue for you as well?
It's a very big issue.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
I'll probably get in trouble a little bit with my team perhaps as well. So there's two elements to that. We have the licenses of using satellite data, the EULA that we have to sign. Sometimes they're internal use only, and sometimes it can be quite confusing. What does it mean? But because a lot of our work requires awareness building, right? Communicating. So it does require some effort and understanding and capacity building internally in the Maldives. But a bigger issue with licensing is, it might be a little bit sensitive to touch on this, but is IP. With climate financing, for example, Arti, you mentioned, a lot of the reasons, even though countries like us, we get the money, a big challenge in working with commercial partners, or maybe a reason commercial partners might hesitate, is because of the IP laws. If we co-develop an algorithm, for example, a model that works for the Maldives, how does commercialization affect our ability to use it? So these are conversations that we've found through our past couple of projects challenging. And like you said, it is very understated. And we are also just finding out that this is an issue. And I do think it requires not just innovation in financing, but also in how we work together. Like, how do we balance the interests of the commercial entities, which obviously need to be balanced for them to be sustainable, but with also non-commercial actors like ourselves to get this data timely manner for the people who need it the most. So it is a very big problem, and we are trying to actively solve it.
Yeah, we always just focus on the availability of data, what kind of data, etc., but we don't actually unpack and realize that there are other issues that are quite critical as well. So we were talking about fish. Christian, I know you like fish. Norway, very strong global shipping, fishing industry. How is NOSA providing its national industries with competitive advantage through space solutions and data?
Well, I think you need to qualify the question a little bit, because I mean we are a facilitator of funding in order for the space industry to develop and facilitate different types of services. Of course, we're looking to our national industry. We're world leading in vessel traffic management, coastal traffic management, and so forth. And when I used to work in industry, and I was in charge of the space division and also the companies that were working on maritime traffic. And I think the better perspective is probably how can these types of technologies and services serve the general maritime community. In Norway, we work closely with the IMO, our coastal administration. They provide data from our AIS satellites, and they receive things in return. We are developing. We had a great program a few years ago with Singapore called e-navigation, and the whole idea was trying to look at all the types of different data sources that you have. It doesn't have to be satellites, but a multi-sensor fusion system in order to look at what can you actually cover from the shore. Historically, you have AIS monitoring, you have radars, you can have optical, everything RF, and then how do you migrate that into the deep ocean where you no longer have visibility from the shore? And that's when the satellites come in, not only in the actual monitoring of the traffic, but also in communication and sort of merging this into a larger system. So I think that as a space agency, our mandate or ambition is to facilitate for that the overall ecosystem in terms of both the authorities, but also those competing in the market. They can have the best means of or way of competing by use of, for instance, satellite data.
Thank you. So there's more than one issue there. It's about efficiencies, communications. And
yes, because I mean, if you talk about maritime protection and sustainability, time to port is exceedingly important in terms of fuel consumption, and a lot of this, and also this program that I was talking about, was how can you plan do travel or plan your routing such that you don't have to spend excessive fuel before you can actually dock and do your thing.
Yeah.
And I think that is part of the overall maritime protection and climate and everything, is actually putting this together into smart systems. And that's where you get into the use of AI. This started actually more than 10 years ago, where you start doing machine learning in order to look at the trade routes, how are the ship maneuvering, and how can you do long-term planning in order to optimize routing, for instance.
Yeah, and that's like an indirect contribution to the SDGs, right? When you think about reducing pollution and other harmful substances and so on.
Well, actually, it's a direct contribution because you're cutting fuel. And you are seeing that the pollution from maritime traffic is going down for various reasons. This is one of them.
Right, excellent. Dawn, can I come back to you? Can you talk a little bit about the market segments of Fugro when it comes to ocean, marine, maritime? Where are you seeing the greatest needs?
The greatest needs? Well, I actually think the idea of, Christian mentioned the data heterogeneity. That's a real challenge, but it's specifically a challenge with what Fugro is doing, is because we're combining space data with in situ marine data. And when you do that, you end up with problems with data resolution, et cetera. But specifically, you end up with problems around position and timing. And that position and timing problem is a real problem. You need to know where you are, you need to know when you were there, and you need to know that in both in the satellite passing over as well as your in situ data. And so I think that that challenge is a continual challenge, and one that we're working to address within Fugro with our Space Star system, which has really improved position, velocity, and resolution, or position, velocity, and timing. But that's one we want to continue to take on. I think I'd push to that one to the top of the list.
Okay, interesting. Atsushi, coming back to you, can you give us an example of how one of your private sector clients, for example, in shipping or in insurance or aquaculture, is using your services to maybe to de-risk their operations or create new efficiencies, and how you think that the same application could be adapted for public good like environmental protection.
Yeah, so one of the biggest customer right now, or actually going to be our customer right now, is the energy system infrastructure customer who has a windmill, a huge windmill in the coast, and supporting the government local entity in the region, and they would like to do the prediction of the temperature, ocean thing, and wind, etc., into the one single digital twin. So we need a lot of data, not only for the satellite data, but also the other data as well. And that, I believe, can be contributed a lot for the environmental side as well, because we can predict how much, for example, the vessels are going around, how we can manage the entire ecosystem efficiently so that we can save the energy, for example. So we see a lot of the value and importance on our solution. So we would love to expand that technology for the other regions as well, so that we can support both very sustainable energy system creation.
And if I can ask you both a question together from the industrial side, where do you think governments should invest most to enable commercial companies to address some of the SDG type of challenges concerning the oceans? Where do you think it would be beneficial for the efforts and the resources to go? Please.
That's very challenging.
Yeah, exactly.
So in terms of the space technology, I would say going back to the previous conversation that we had in the beginning, I still believe that such a data is not enough yet. Mm-hmm. For example, we have an inquiry from a country in the Middle East, and we wanted to create a digital twin, and we asked the commercial satellite image provider, hey, do you have our data there? And they don't have it. So we cannot create a digital twin even in the near time. So we need more infrastructure on the space-based infrastructure for sure, and that's I think the government should still invest more. And the other point is that the licensing is very critical for us as well. So we'd like the government to focus on the creating the new applications to utilize how we can use the infrastructure, space-based infrastructure for the benefit of life on Earth.
Mm-hmm. And before you answer, Dawn, we heard in the past that the Pacific Islands, there really is a shortage of data for this region. We heard how Copernicus switches off its satellites to save battery going over this region. Is there still a shortage of data for this region in your view?
Absolutely. I think Medine spoke to this, where specifically around the equator, you're going to end up with shortages in general. But almost all of our satellite systems are set up to observe the land, not the waters, which means not the islands. And so we're going to have this challenge until we start. It's really about the number of revisits, right? So they're going over this area, but not taking data. So that means we're short on data, and so absolutely, that's an area that we can improve upon. And again, there's constellations of satellites being built and flown right now that are tackling that, where their focus is they'll be turning off their observations over land because they really want to collect the data for the on the water side. And really, what they're looking at is disaster problems, right? Well, disasters and regulatory observations of platforms and ships. So those types of things, I think we're going to see a change, but we are behind the curve, and there's a lot of missing data, especially if you look at a global data set and look at the amount of it's for land versus ocean, for certain.
So I don't understand entirely, because I listen to Planet in different fora talking about how they're mapping the whole world multiple times a day. And then we hear about, I think it's 30 new oceanographic missions which are being launched in coming years. So there is a lot of investment into this segment. What do you think, Christian?
First of all, I think that you really need to consider the total, again, the total value chain and assessing what are you actually trying to achieve, because you mentioned the public-private partnership. I think that's an excellent idea, but it's only excellent if it's a true opportunity for the company that is investing in the program to have a return on the investment. Otherwise, it won't work. So it's nothing wrong with government funding these types of programs. And I think in many instances, to actually calculating a profit is almost impossible. When we do our proposal for our government, sometimes these are tangible numbers. We can say that, okay, these industrial contracts, you know, you can qualify them and they will be of this magnitude, so this is a good way of investing money. In many other cases, we do socioeconomic analysis where you do a lot of assumptions saying that, well, we think that this is worthwhile for the policy and the politics that Norway will apply, for instance, in foreign aid or protection of the environment. So I really think there needs to be a balanced consideration. And that's how the agencies need to play along and cooperate with the commercial operators, the commercial satellite owners, and those who are providing the data. Just trying to commercialize this and say, hey, you can fix this, that won't work. You really have to have government standing behind it. We're seeing this in NICFI. NICFI is not only a satellite program, it's a large program protecting, where the intention is to protect the tropical rainforest globally from plus to minus 30 degrees latitude. And this is something that Norway wants to do, not by themselves, but jointly with Germany and other countries, investing in that because it supports the SDGs. Likewise with illegal fishery, which you touched upon, which is the same thing. Maybe that's easier to calculate because you can actually say that there are so many million tons illegal fishery being conducted every year, so you could actually do a calculation on that. But still, it's the same thing, that some governments have to stand behind and say, we are going to facilitate this because we can draw on other programs or other investments, like in the Blue Justice program, where we're using what we're doing, as I mentioned before, on the national program for monitoring our oceans. We're now transferring through this program. We're doing an experiment now with the local hub in Jamaica, using Norwegian satellites for monitoring illegal fishery, and then jointly with the policing agencies and authorities in Jamaica, trying to see how can that actually work.
I'm going to pick on something you said. You talked about measuring, like, the impact, for example, with IUU fishing. And I always give the Peruvian example that by observing using SAR satellites at night and so on, they were able to really enforce their law about vessels coming into Peruvian waters. And within 1 year, they saw the number of illegal vessels go from 200 down to 40. Tremendous. However, this is a global problem. Those vessels may have stopped causing a problem for Peru. They're still going to be causing a problem somewhere else. So we need a coordinated solution, a coordinated action to embed space by design into policy making, at least regionally, in order to really make a positive impact on the global challenge, don't you think?
Yes, this is absolutely true, and you're seeing this, and exactly when the people doing the illegal fishery, when they know they're being detected in this territory, they will move to the next one. But this is why I think that is the strength of the Blue Justice program, because I think there are 65 coastal nations that have signed on to this. They're covering in excess of 35% of the total economic zone, extended economic zones. Exactly as you say, that you need to sort of standardize, but then you have the real-time element. because you need to act within
20
less
minutes.
than 20 or
Exactly.
15 minutes. This is really, really hard, because if you have a satellite monitoring the perpetrator, you have to fly over a ground station. That takes another 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and then you have the value chain or the data chain actually going back. That doesn't work. So we're just at a starting point, but we really need to get down to less than 15, 10 or 10 minutes.
Yeah, and this is where, I was going to come to you, Madden, because you were talking about how you've got the best Coast Guard in the world, and these are the guys who need to act on this kind of actionable intelligence, right? Please.
I'll qualify. I'll qualify that statement by saying maybe per capita, because we are a small Coast Guard. No, I mean, Christian, you made some really excellent points, and I really like that conversation there, because you're right. I'll give you a really interesting number. Right now, I would say the average amount of time that our Coast Guard has to wait after making a request for an optical high-resolution imagery ranges between 1 day to 7 days. It is nowhere near 20 minutes. And by the time either the illegal fishing vessel is in Peru or somewhere else. And so it's you're right.
No, it's not in Peru.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. They're tracking it. Maybe somewhere else. Maybe in Tonga. And so I think. So I do think there's a huge gap there, and I think NICFI is an excellent model in how governments can cooperate on a global problem. And I think the key for that is we've identified the value that tropical rainforests provide. We have not done the same for a tropical ocean or any part of the ocean in the same manner. I don't think that it is difficult to quantify what the ocean can provide. I just don't think we've done it meaningfully.
Can you explain that a little bit, what you mean?
So for example, with the tropical rainforest, we know how much carbon dioxide it removes, how much oxygen it puts, how much it adds to the global climate, to our fight against the global warming, and also all the value that it provides to biodiversity and the countries that they're situated in. And I'm pretty sure that when NICFI was created, and maybe Christian, you can speak to it more, there was a cost-benefit analysis done. I don't think the same level has been achieved with ocean. The problems that happen in the Maldives, the problems that happen with the our fish movement, our illegal fishing activity, are not a local problem. It is a global problem. When our coral reefs die, it affects India, it affects Sri Lanka. Yeah. But we have not quantified that, because the only way we can make the money work is by showing that by solving our problems, it's not Maldives as the market, it's the globe as the market, right? You solve our problem, you actually impact the world, right? You can solve the problems in India, in Sri Lanka, in Peru even perhaps. And so I think that's the level we need to get to. We need to use space data to justify using space data first, and then maybe we'll be able to make it sustainable.
Yeah, because I do think that even if you solve in one region, doesn't it just mean that you're increasing the pressure on the neighboring region?
Well, maybe we have to do it in every region, then they'll have nowhere to hide.
Yeah. Well, we're going to work on that through our Space for Oceans Alliance, right?
That's right. And you mentioned the Space for Ocean that was signed at the UN Ocean Conference in Nice in France this June. I think it's a great example. We're not totally sure in which direction this will go, but we do have a joint ambition of the intention of pooling and sharing together all of good resources in order to protect all elements of the ocean, from microplastic to illegal fishery to reducing, the whatever you need to reduce in order to support the SDGs.
Thank you. Would our commercial providers like to come in on anything that you've just heard?
So I honestly, I don't know how to say what the commercial solution is to a illegal fishing problem, other than saying we can collect data for you, but we just created a different problem. Maybe not as great as illegal fishing, but a greater problem. So I guess I don't have a solution to that, but I do think there is something to be said for the idea that we're going to use technology to get there. That, I guess, I'm going to lean into from a commercial perspective. Technology is our friend here, and I think that's where, when we look at our governmental agencies and their support of advancing technologies, I know there's a lot of value and benefit in regulatory practices, but I do think we need to embrace technology and really let that let it loose so it can solve some of these problems that don't have necessarily a obvious commercial bent to them.
Yes. I mean, for me, the ocean is riddled with issues that technology is required to solve.
Exactly.
So effectively, that's a massive market, isn't it?
You're exactly right. And I think, honestly, what we're going to find is we're going to be looking at, oil spills, and we're going to, find vessels doing things that are, or being places they're not supposed to be. You don't solve one problem when you use a new technology. It expands to address and adapt for a bunch of different problems for us specifically in our oceans.
Mm-hmm. Atsushi, from what you're hearing here, where do you think, what do you think the next big innovation is going to be? Is it going to be in how we work together? Is it going to be in technology? What do you think? I mean, you're young, you're visionary.
Well, I'm not that young. I have one daughter, by the way. Well, so to answer is, I think both technology and collaboration. First of all, we would love to work with the Maldives Research Space Organization for sure. And there's a lot of lessons learned that we can get by the collaboration, that we can implement that lessons to the other nations, even in Japan as well. So we are very much excited to working together with these friends. And the other point is the technology, that's right. There's a lot of opportunities in ocean, but I think there's a lot of the things that we cannot identify yet. Okay. So hopefully, using the new technologies like AI or others, that we can come to the new solutions that we can provide together. So yeah, we will definitely work on those.
Excellent. So we only have a few minutes left. I want to ask each of you, if there was a genie in a bottle who could give you a wish, what would your wish be? In terms of really advancing on what you believe is critical challenge ahead of you. Who wants to go first?
Well, I can try. It was mentioned this morning that the amount of data is just overwhelming. Mm-hmm. It may not be the right data, but I think more efficient use of the space infrastructure, because if you're looking at it, we're talking about tens of thousands of satellites for communication, Earth observation, everything. It's probably not the right way to go. We really need to be more efficient in terms of making robust systems, but also making more efficient use of the hardware. That meaning having artificial intelligence one way or the other guiding how you're actually exploiting that. In that sense, you probably will be able to reduce your investments, making sure that you can exploit those data to the best of many end users. That is one thing. The other thing is the data that you already have, proper data archiving in order to do data mining on a smart way, and doing statistics and working on both historical data and efficient use of infrastructure going forward.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Dawn?
Can I jump in? Because mine's also very data-centric, which is data is not information. Data, and so when we say we have lots and lots of data, that doesn't mean we have turned it into information. So if I had a genie, it would do just that. It would make that data into something usable, consumable, actionable. And I think, as Sushi was pointing out, AI is providing that. Now, it needs to be validated when we say that. It doesn't become information just because it goes through an AI system. But I do think that is a big part of that genie story for us. And I think we should be leaning into that so that we can move faster, turn that data, lots and lots of data, into something that we can do something with.
Thank you. Atsushi?
Wish, right? Well, it might be difficult, and maybe I'm too dreamer, but space is supposed to be no boundaries, but when I'm in this industry, I can feel a lot of the boundaries. So it's very unfortunate, and I think I can understand that. For example, when I work with the Japanese government, hopefully there's no Japanese government people, but there's a lot of boundaries for example, budget that can be used, and I think it's true. They're right. Yeah. But space is supposed to be no boundaries again. Mm-hmm. So hopefully we can find the solutions. Each country, each nations work together to solve a single solution and unite both private and public knowledge to tackle those. and I think you can do this.
No pressure.
She's your genie.
Yes.
Okay, Madin, the last word.
It's no pressure. I think, so I'm going to follow the theme. Data is not information, but information is not intelligence, so I can tie to the panel. I think my wish would be, I wish that the space sector and the ocean sector would talk more. We've seen a lot of solutions created on coral reefs, on the oceans, where, even for the Maldives, where when we ask, okay, so who from the Maldives did you work with to validate this or check this? And they're like, no one, this should work. And we show them exactly why and where it doesn't work, and people are surprised. And I think a lot of that pain and investment, we talk about making data more efficient. We also should make money, the investment more efficient by having conversations. So I do wish that the space sector and the ocean sector can collaborate better, respect each other's strengths, and try to extract as much intelligence out of information. And the key difference there is that intelligence is what will lead to action, because that's tailored for what the policymakers need or whoever needs the data to use. In the Maldives, the way we present that information might be different from where we present it in any other place. And that nuance you can only get by speaking to the people of the end users. And I think that would be my wish.
Fantastic. So we've said make more efficient use of technology and data which is available. We've said let data really be transformed with the help of AI, with human in the loop, I hope, into actionable intelligence. Bridging the gap between space and oceans, marine, maritime communities, and finally letting the funds, of which there's so much out there, really flow across the boundaries to reach those that they really need to reach. I would say that I think space agencies need to, Norway might be the exception, need to talk.
You didn't have to say that.
No, but I mean, listening to your Blue Justice program, etc., you may well be the exception. But I think, space agencies are always talking to science ministries and so on, and we need to be talking to development ministries, environmental ministries, and the rest of them, and really, telling the story better of the impact that can be made, and how space is, I said it this morning, it's not the final frontier of exploration, it's the final frontier of development, oceans included. Thank you very much. Please join me in thanking a wonderful panel. I hope you enjoyed this discussion.
Thank you very much to Arti and to all the speakers for this great session. This is the last panel session for the GNF, but in 5 minutes you have the host plenary in the Darling Harbour Theatre, so please join us there. Thank you.